UFC 314 is this weekend. I'm going to be giving my entire recap entire predictions, and breakdown for the entire card, starting from the very early prelim all the way to the main event. We are finally here. No camera today. I don't know if I'm going to keep doing this or not. We're just trying stuff out. But yeah, I mean, this is the big card that everyone's been waiting for. We're all excited for. This is the one that we want. We get 2 weeks off of the UFC after this card. We've got a lot of work to do. So let's get into it, all right? I got about 45 minutes to break down this entire card. So let's get into it, all right? Starting off, the very early prelim, Nora Canol versus Haley Cowan. Okay, kind of a dud of a fight to start. Women's bantamweight, very skilled. But I like Nora Canol. I think she will win this fight. 13th ranked bantamweight in the division right now. In the women's bantamweight division, I believe she has she lost in her last fight, but I believe she's 1-1 in the UFC or 2-1 in the UFC. She got a good win on the Contender Series. She had a good win on the Contender Series. I like her in this fight more than Haley Cowan. I think that she has a little bit more overall size on her in terms of weight, and I think that, and just like muscle, and I think Canol is gonna get this one done. I'm just gonna say it a little bit slow. We know that I'm not trying to talk about this fight. No one's interested in me talking about this fight, but I do think Nora Canol will win, and I'll say by decision. Moving up the card, Tresean Gore versus Marco Tulio. It's going to decide to load the faces of these two. Now, this is actually a very underrated fight. I think it's going to be a very, very good fight, and I really, really like Tresean Gore, and I really, really like Marco Tulio. Tulio is very talented. He has a lot of skill at the middleweight division. Yes, very talented, very good striker, has good ground game. Has a very good record. I like that he's experienced. Tresean Gore came off the Ultimate Fighter. Didn't have a lot of experience going into that, but he was a very good striker in terms of he has really good boxing, and he's got good kicks when he wants to use them. Now, Tresean Gore, he had a lot of issues with injuries. He was supposed to fight Bo Nickel, but that's when Val Woodburn stepped up to fight Bo Nickel on International Fight Week. Because Tresean Gore pulled out the week of, I believe, due to injury or sickness or something. But recently, he's finally been able to get a groove on. I believe he fought at UFC Tampa, and he got a big win. I believe it was by KO, actually, if I'm remembering correctly. Let's click on his profile here. But yeah, I know he's coming off a really big win. No, it wasn't. Oh yeah, it was against Dracoli. Okay, well, Dracoli, that doesn't really matter, but he did get a win. I believe it was on the Edmonton card. No, it was on Apex. It was on the Apex card. The Apex 100. The great Apex 100. But Tresean Gore, he definitely, I've been following his camp and everything. He seems very focused, and I like Tresean Gore. He seems very focused, very locked in. He seems very excited. He's trying to stay active, and he's trying to get in there a lot. He wanted to get another fight by the end of the year, but he only got in there for this card, which, fair enough to him. Stepping up and taking on Marco Tulio, who's coming off a win of himself. I really like Tresean Gore, and I do think he actually has talent to go into the middleweight division. But I think Marco Tulio is just too good. I think Marco Tulio is a legit middleweight prospect who's going to be a top-ranked guy. I think he'll be a top 10 guy at some point in his career. So I'm going to pick Marco Tulio here. I'm going to say by decision. I don't think he KOs Tresean Gore. I don't think he submits Tresean Gore. I just think that he'll win this one by decision. I think it'll be convincing enough to where we can deem him a good prospect. Not anything generational, but a very good prospect. Moving up the card. No, I don't want to look at Mitch Raposo's profile. I want to look at the fight comparison. Sumeta versus Mitch Raposo. I can't say his fucking name, and it sucks because he's actually been in the UFC forever, and I've watched so many of his fights, and I'm just embarrassed, guys. But Mitch Raposo, I like Sumundareji in this fight. I really do. I think that he's going to win this fight. He's got too much size of Mitch Raposo. Mitch Raposo's really, really small. He took his last fight on short notice, and it was close, but he wasn't able to get the win. And, he's got a 3-inch height disadvantage here. I don't think it'll be anything, a KO or anything. I think that, or a submission. I just think that I can see Sumundareji just outstriking him, kind of tit for tat, a little bit more on the outside. He's going to be bouncing around. And being a little bit less active, and Raposo will just be kind of walking forward and not throwing too much. That's kind of what I can see this fight being, very similar to the fight we saw last week with Murphy and Emmett. I'm assuming you all saw the reaction to that video. Terrible. But I mean, it was a good win, and, I think that's going to be a similar fight here, the height disadvantage. Mitch Raposo's decent. I just don't think he's great. I just don't think he's that good. And I don't like the height disadvantage for him. He's very small for the flyweight division. And, he's going to have more strength. I just don't see him. His only chance, like a 7.5 reach disadvantage for Mitch Raposo. That's hurtful. And, he's stronger than him, I'm assuming, because if they are similar weights that they cut down from, I'm assuming the wrestling could be a little bit of a factor here if Mitch Raposo wants to get involved in that, but I don't think his wrestling is good enough to just beat Sumundareji. So I think he's going to get the win here by decision, beating Mitch Raposo. I think just kind of bouncing around on the outside and not really getting hit too much. Moving up the card, Cedric Dumas versus Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. Okay. See, I get that name right. But it's Mikhail. I'm going to pick Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. I do think that Dumas could win this fight. I do, because here's the thing about Oleksiejczuk. He has lost a lot of his recent fights. And he had a fight with Shara Magomedov, and it was relatively close. He was landing strikes on Shara Magomedov, but if you really look back on Shara's career, it's not really that impressive of a loss or anything, because if you look back on Shara's career, the only guy he really wasn't getting that hit by was Tricoli, and Tricoli's terrible. Bruno Silva nearly outstruck him, and he was taking down Shara Magomedov. Shara is always on the back foot. No one is going to be getting pushed. Shara is never going to push the pace. Mikhail is going to push the pace and get in the boxing range and land. Arman Petrosian was landing all over Shara, and I think Arman had more strikes than Shara before the KO. So, and Mikhail may have outstruck him in that fight. It was very, very close. But Shara ended up doing a little bit more and getting the win. But I don't consider that too impressive of a loss, and I believe his recent fight was he got submitted by Kevin Holland, if I'm correct. I believe that was his last fight. Or it might have been the Shara fight. It might have been the Shara fight was his last fight. I think it was. Because he replaced Nick Diaz. Or no, whoa, I'm slow. It was Shara versus Oleksiejczuk. But that was replacing Nick Diaz versus Vicente Luque. God, imagine if fucking Nick Diaz fought Shara. Oh my God. But I don't like those two last fights for him. I'm worried that he's going to be a little bit less motivated going into this fight. But Cedric Dumas is not very good. Let's be real. He's very average. He's not very great at anything. He's just kind of average at everything. He's got an okay ground game. He's got okay striking. He's kind of stiff. He's a middleweight. Shocker. Oleksiejczuk's got a little bit more flow to his game. He's a little bit better on the inside. He's got better boxing. And I think he can win this on the ground against Cedric Dumas. And I think he's got a higher skill level and experience level than Cedric Dumas. The reach disadvantage will be an issue, but I don't think Dumas is very good at using that in terms of actually using it to break down his opponents. He's good at keeping distance, but he's not very good at just completely breaking down his opponent. So I think Mikhail Oleksiejczuk is going to get this win. I'm going to say, I'm going to say by third round TKO. I think this will be the first TKO on the card. I think the other 3 fights are going to go to decision. Tulio could get a finish, but I really do think that Oleksiejczuk will probably get the first finish on the card. And, yeah, Oleksiejczuk will get the win to end off the early prelims. Main prelim opener, Darren Elkins versus Big Julian Erosa and Big 2025. Oh my goodness, what a fight. Julian Erosa better fucking win this fight, man. Sorry, I had to worry about something for school. Yeah, Julian Erosa, I mean, he's beaten so many prospects. Christian Rodriguez. I mean, it's just... I mean, he's beaten so many prospects, and I can't even name any of them, but he fucking... Darren Elkins is just old. He's not that good anymore. He should not get a win in Big 2025. He just shouldn't. And if he does, Julian Erosa genuinely needs to quit MMA. But I don't understand how Julian Erosa beats some of the people that he does and then loses after the fact. So I do worry that this is going to be the fight that Julian Erosa will drop. Somehow, they're both coming off wins. One of these fighters is going to be on a 2-fight win streak. Holy shit. This is crazy. I'm going to pick Julian Erosa. I think he's going to do better on the feet than Darren Elkins. Darren Elkins, I believe his last fight was against... It was against, not Chris Padilla, it was, oh my god, who was his last fight against? Fuck, it's on the tip of my tongue. It was the PFL dude who, like, tested positive for steroids. Daniel Pineda, that's right. And now he's fighting Julian Erosa. And Erosa, who was his last fight? I can't even remember I can't remember any of these fuckers' last fights, dude. Can you stop fucking bouncing off? Christian Rodriguez was his last fight in July of last year. Fucking crazy. Fucking crazy. Lost to Padilla. He's on a 2-fight win streak now. He beat... that's not a good win. He got a submission in that fight. I like Julian Erosa on the ground, actually, compared to Darren Elkins. You know what? I'm going to pick Julian Erosa by submission. Julian Erosa is going to be on a big win streak in Big 2025, a 3-fight win streak. Yeah, Julian Erosa. I'm going to say by second round submission. I think Darren Elkins is... Daniel Pineda is not a great win. I mean, he keeps it scrappy, but he's not very good. And, yeah, I mean, I don't credit that win that much. So, I'm going to pick Julian Erosa in this one. Moving up the card, Jim Miller versus Chase Hooper. Here we go. Chase Hooper's going to win this. Jim Miller's too old at this point in his career, and this is too hard of a matchup. Chase Hooper's absolutely looked very good in his recent fights. That Valashev-Borshev performance was absolutely phenomenal. He looked great in that fight. His striking looked very good. He outstruck a world champion kickboxer, and then he held him down and dominated him with ground and pound. I mean, that was an unbelievable performance by Chase Hooper. Gets a quick submission over Clay Guida. I believe he's now on a 3 or 4 fight win streak. Jim Miller won his last fight. God, who did he fight? Because he had the Bobby Miller loss, which was a really hard one on him because he got absolutely toasted in that fight. Bobby Miller was just piecing up. Oh, yeah, he fought Damon Jackson at lightweight, yeah. Oh, yeah, that was on the MSG card. I remember that fight now. Yeah. Damon Jackson's completely done at this point in his career, so I don't really credit that win. Chase Hooper's got better wins on his resume. Chase the Unk killer Hooper is going to kill another Unk, I think. He won't actually kill him, but I think it'll be a submission. It won't be a knockout or anything. I think if it does stay on the feet for long enough, I mean, Jim Miller could absolutely catch Chase Hooper. That's not completely out of the question. I do trust Chase Hooper on the feet out now, though. At this point in his career, he's developed his striking game compared to the beginning of his career. Dear God, he couldn't fucking throw a punch. But now, he actually has some striking in his arsenal. His hands aren't too bad. He's got, he's fast. He probably doesn't have too much power, and he's not the most well-built guy. I mean, he had a little bit of a muffin top in the media day photos I saw, but I just think Jim Miller's too old at this point in his career. I don't think he catches Chase Hooper in the first round. I don't think he can pull that off right now. And I think Chase Hooper will get it to the ground before Jim Miller catches him. So I think if that happens, Chase Hooper will get him to the ground, either get him in an armbar, or rear naked choke, or some sort of submission, and that'll do it. So I think first or second round submission for Chase Hooper, pretty locked in. I would be very shocked if it went the other way, but decent fight. Chase Hooper just getting all the unks on his resume, good for him. I don't know, whatever. Moving up the card, Yan Xiaonan versus Virna Jandiroba. All right. A strawweight title eliminator on the prelims. Wow, the world we've come to. This is actually a very interesting fight. I do think that this could be entertaining because these are both very, very good fighters. But Virna Jandiroba has a tendency to make it very boring. Sorry, I was looking at her. Paulo Costa, you know what I'm on, dude. But Yan Xiaonan's, I think, very, very good. She's coming off a big win over Amanda Ribas where she absolutely dominated her in the striking realm. I mean, Yan Xiaonan completely outclassed her, as I expected. Virna Jandiroba, I believe, is coming off her win over Amanda Lemos, who I believe also recently won. So that's a good win to have on your resume. But Amanda Lemos got whooped by Zhang Weili. Yan Xiaonan had much more competitive moments. I thought it was 4-1, potentially 3-2, but I really thought it was 4-1. Yan Xiaonan did drop her and hurt Zhang Weili really, really bad at one point. But she also got put to sleep in that fight by a submission. That was a really good fight. So I'm excited to see what Yan Xiaonan does. But I like that she came back in November and already got a win. That shows that she didn't really get demoralized by that loss to Zhang Weili. That shows that she knows that she can stick in it with Zhang Weili. And if there is anybody to rematch Weili at strawweight, Yan Xiaonan is the perfect candidate. So I think that's good for Yan Xiaonan to have in her mind. Virna Jandiroba has not fought Zhang Weili. I don't think so. And, she's going to really be hoping to take down Yan Xiaonan and kind of hold her down. Maybe get her into a submission. She's coming off that amazing Apex main event win on Amanda Lemos. I know we were all watching on January 20th of last year. This is actually a really hard fight to predict. Jandiroba is going to try and get this down. She's going to try and get it down to the ground and hold down Yan Xiaonan and get a submission or just control her throughout the course of the fight. Do I trust Yan Xiaonan to get out of bottom and whether that's reverse her or catch her in a submission and get up or whatever she needs to do off bottom to get up? Do I trust her to do that enough? Because she's obviously going to win on the feet. I think Virna Jandiroba was terrible on the feet. She's not, garbage, but she's not very good on the feet. She has no true ability on the feet, and that's why I think Zhang Weili would absolutely fucking destroy her. So I'm hoping Yan Xiaonan wins, because I do not want to see Virna Jandiroba in a title fight. But my guess is that Zhang Weili is going to fight the winner of Shevchenko-Firo next. So, I don't think either of these women, whoever wins, are going to have to worry about fighting Zhang Weili anytime soon, because Zhang Weili will fight probably maybe at the end of this year and then maybe in the middle of next year if we're lucky, because she fights about once a year. So if we're lucky, maybe she'll get in there by December this year, and then maybe she can get there by August next year, and one of these women can come off a year layoff to fight her. But I'm going to pick... Damn. I'm going to pick Yan Xiaonan. I hope she wins, so that's why I'm going to pick her. This is a really close fight. But I do think Jandiroba could just get her down and hold her there. But I will say this fight was originally scheduled for UFC 310 and got canceled. And pushed back to this Miami card. I believe it was Jandiroba who was injured. So that causes questions. And I like if this fight stays on the feet. I trust Yan Xiaonan's experience and momentum coming off a win already, getting back in there already in November. No, this wasn't scheduled for December. There's no way this was scheduled for December. I'm tweaking. When was this scheduled for? When the fuck? I feel like this was scheduled for 310. Am I crazy? Maybe it was, and then they just like gave Xiaonan a different opponent on the China card. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I think it was Jandaroba who was injured, and I thought it was for scheduled for 310. But I mean, I like the momentum coming from Yan Xiaonan going into this fight, getting another win on her record, completely outclassing someone who had no business being in the octagon with her. I don't care about what Amanda Ribas looks like. All right, she's terrible compared to Yan Xiaonan. At least she's not that bad, but not like Yan Xiaonan. So I'm gonna pick her. I'm gonna pick her by close decision. I'm gonna say split. I'm gonna say 29-28 split decision. She gets it done on the feet though and out damages her. Moving up the card to the prelim headliner, Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson. Okay, guys. Oof. This is a hard fight to predict. Sean Woodson's the favorite. I don't like the look of Dan Ige going into this fight. I feel like the momentum has fallen off a little bit. He didn't look good in his Lerone Murphy fight. He dropped him in the third, but I believe it was the third. But he didn't really throw. And it looked like he had a broken hand or a hand injury, and he might have, but he still didn't throw. And I was just concerned, and he looked off in that fight. And now he's accepting this fight on, 5 or 6 months later, after the Abu Dhabi card. And that was coming off when he stepped up on short notice to fight Diego Lopes. So, a lot of momentum going into that fight in terms of fan base, just like his aura, just because he was coming off that, that crazy short notice step up. And I hope that Dan Ige wins, but because look at Sean Woodson. I mean, he's an absolute weight bully, but I like Sean Woodson. I mean, he's got a cool story, lost a bunch of weight, He just looks like an alien. He looks really fucking creepy. And I see him in my nightmares. But for that reason, I'm going to pick Sean Woodson. I'm sorry, Dan Ige. I wouldn't be shocked, honestly, if Dan Ige lands an overhand punch and knocks out Sean Woodson. I would not completely rule it out, okay? I think that's fair to say. However, Sean Woodson is very good. He fought his last fight in Tampa. I like the momentum for him. Now he's in Miami 4 months later, fighting a ranked opponent. And he's really good. His boxing, he's super improved. Sean Woodson's boxing is crisp. It's clean. He's good at range. He has power. So does Dan Ige, but based on his last performance, I'm going to pick Sean Woodson. I'm going to pick Sean Woodson, and I'm going to say by decision. I think it'll be a good fight. I am picking a lot of decisions on this card, but I do think this will be a good fight. But I do think it'll go to the scorecards, and I think it'll be like a couple 29-28s and maybe a 30-27 will get thrown in there for Sean Woodson. He'll get the win. I could see something like that. Convincing win from Sean Woodson, but Ige kind of kept in there. But, I feel like Ige's getting close to the, I worry about him after his recent 2 losses. So, he looked good against Diego Lopes, though, man. God, am I really about to change my pick here? Fuck it. We're going with Dan Ige by crazy knockout, overhand right. First or second round, calling it. Maybe third, I don't know. I'm just going to say by overhand right, sleeps Sean Woodson brutally. I'm just going out on a limb and saying it. Moving up the card to the main card. Nikita Krylov versus Dominic Reyes. Okay, guys. We all love Dominic. We all know that he beat John Jones. And I'm happy that he's on a 2-fight win streak. I'm so happy to see him back in the limelight. He's on the main card of a massive pay-per-view. He was supposed to be on the prelims, but after Pradas got canceled versus Jeff Neal, this got moved back up to the opener on the main card. And this is a great fight. But here's what I have to say. Nikita Krylov is an absolute fucking menace. All right? This dude's a menace. He's always in shape. I mean, look at him. He's ripped for this fight. He's been off for 2 years. And generally, guys are going to be more tentative going into their next fight. However, this isn't a Jan Blachowicz situation. Krylov's 33. He's not 40. Okay? If he was 38, maybe I pick Reyes here. But Reyes is very basic, man. It's true. Unfortunately, it's true. Reyes is basic. He just is. He is very step in, 1-2, step in, 1-2. That's how he got KO'd so many times. He had more creativity in the Jones fight, but I mean, it was just still generally his 1-2 and a body kick. And I just feel like Krylov has so much more in his arsenal, and I feel like he's been at war. In the Russia and Ukraine war, he lives right on the border. I mean, this dude's been at, I think that Krylov is going to get this win, and I think it's going to be brutal. I'm not going to lie, guys. I feel like the first round's going to go by, and it'll be relatively close, but I think Krylov will edge it out, and we'll have more, and there will be visible damage on Dominic Reyes' face. I think he'll go back to the corner looking a little bit like, oh, this guy's really good, like, looking at his guys like, he's really fucking good. He's really strong. And I think he's going to worry a little bit. And I'm worried that doubt is going to come back in his mind. Because you got to think, man, it's two matchups. I mean, he had the Jacoby matchup, and Jacoby, that's aged well, of course. But Jacoby's not the greatest fighter ever. I mean, we have to be honest. And Reyes, I think he understood that was his back was against the wall there. And then Anthony Smith, it's fucking Anthony Smith. I mean, dear God, Anthony Smith just gives up and fucking lays on the ground in every single fight that he's in nowadays. He used to win fights. He doesn't do it anymore. His last fight was against fucking, what was the dude's name? Whatever the fucking bum's name out of Brazil was. It was supposed to be a prospect, and he put his head right into a fucking guillotine. I mean, Anthony Smith can't strike with a single fucking person in the division, so of course Dominic Reyes is going to outstrike him. He's going to have that confidence, but I think Krylov's ready. I think he only steps in there when he's ready. And I think he's finally ready. And I think he's going to be locked in for this fight. I don't see him starting off super slow. Maybe he'll start off a little slow, but I do think that he'll land shots, and Reyes, he'll get a reaction out of Reyes. And I think he go back to the corner after the first round. I said, like, Reyes might be a little, he'll be a little less confident. Like, oh, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And then it's going to get to the second round. I feel like we're just going to start to see, as the second round goes on, I feel like we might see Reyes break. And I feel like Krylov's going to get to him, and he's going to punch him, and he's going to kick him. And Reyes is just going to have not many answers except his 1-2. And Krylov is way better than just Anthony Smith getting hit by a 1-2, okay? Krylov will change angles and nail you with a kick to the body or the head. He will fire a front kick. He will fire a counter right off the slip. I mean, he's going to be much more, he's going to have a lot of intent with his shots, and I could see a brutalization, honestly. I love Dominic Reyes. I really do. And I'm going to be cheering for him in this fight. I love Krylov too, but I am going to be cheering for Reyes, of course. I'd love to see Reyes get back to the top. But I really think Krylov is a lot better than Reyes. I think that there's a level disparity here. And I think that at this point, I like Nikita Krylov here. And I think it's going to be by either he's going to be flatline KO or it'll be by brutal ground and pound TKO, and Reyes is going to be bloodied all over the face. I'm going to be brutally honest. I think that's what's happening. So, Krylov, second or third round, maybe early third round, flatline or brutalization, bloody KO, ground and pound. I just think it could be a TKO doctor stoppage. I mean, there might be a really, really bad cut that Krylov opens up and they have to stop it. But I'm going to just say either Reyes quits on the ground after getting hit way too much and he's absolutely done. I mean, he has too much damage and he's not able to go on any longer. He's not quitting. I just think Krylov's a lot better than him. So that's what I'm going to say. Moving up the card. Bryce Mitchell, Gene Silva. The main event. No, not Yair Pitbull. We'll get to that fight. Gene Silva, Bryce Mitchell. Okay. Now, this is a very intriguing fight, I mean, it's very hard to predict. Because John Silva has shown a lot of weaknesses in grappling, especially against Charles Jourdain, where, Jourdain is a good striker. He's not meant to be taking you down that much. He just isn't. And I think that I've seen clips of John Silva training, and I just feel like he gets overzealous with the striking, and then he just gets taken down. It's like when you're a UFC creative fighter in UFC 5, and then you're just kind of punching, and then they just take you down. Like you just walk into a takedown. Like that's how I feel like Gene Silva fights sometimes. Now, do I think he's good enough to reverse himself and get back up and KO Bryce Mitchell? 110%. He does it in multiple fights. He did it in the Charles Jourdain fight, and Bryce Mitchell said it himself in media day. But I do feel like Bryce Mitchell has that in his head, I know this guy's a dangerous striker. I know this is going to be a big fight. But Bryce is going to be focused to get him to the ground. And I could see Gene Silva losing. Bryce fucking cooked him at the press conference. You can't lie. But these two, it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. And I'm very excited. Now, we do have to mention this. Bryce Mitchell fought Josh Emmett a year and a half ago now. Almost a year and a half ago. Got brutalized, or not brutalized, but he got brutally KO'd. Came back a year later on the Vegas card in the next December. Fought Kron Gracie, who was 1-2 in the fucking UFC. Who got a ranked... I genuinely still can't believe that fight happened. And of course he KO'd him with elbows. Bryce Mitchell's a good enough grappler to not get submitted by Kron Gracie. And, Kron Gracie has no fucking idea how to strike. Bryce Mitchell's going to get outstruck on the feet. And Gene Silva's going to hurt him. Bryce is very good at once he gets you down, he'll get your back or he's going to get you in a submission position. And I feel like a twister could be coming, man. I really do. But, personally, I'm going to pick Gene Silva. Bryce could absolutely win this fight, and if he does, I won't be shocked. But Gene Silva is a fucking killer. Let's be real. He's crazy. He's literally crazy. He has the tism, and he's amazing. He uses it to his advantage, and I don't feel like this dude feels pain. And it's hard to think that obviously Dober doesn't have the threat of the takedown, and styles make fights. But I feel like if you're able to brutalize a man like Drew Dober that much, I think that's what ended his career. I don't think Dober was done going into that Silva fight. I think that was the fight that ended him. Because he got killed in that fight. Now, Dober would just kind of walk into shots, and for some reason when he knew Gene Silva's hands were broken because all he was throwing were spinning elbows, he would just walk into the spinning elbows. It really didn't make a lot of sense. But I feel like I trust Gene Silva to just land that shot, man, and KO Bryce Mitchell. Whether it's a big overhand right, I feel like I could see a counter hook coming. I feel like maybe Bryce goes with the jab, like a double jab, and marches too much forward, and Gene changes angles and hits him with the check hook and drops him. I could see that. And Gene would try to, he'll aura farm and, point at him and, or look at him and bark or something. And then maybe Bryce will stand back up, and then Gene will stand there. He'll bark a little bit, and then he'll hit him with one more and end it. I could see something like that. I trust the power of Gene Silva more than I trust the power of Bryce Mitchell getting him down and getting a submission. Gene Silva will get up from positions. And this is on short notice. Gene Silva's been a little bit more active. He fought in February. He called for this fight. He wanted this fight. That says something. He's going to be in better shape, I feel like. Mitchell is, he wasn't quite as prepared for this fight as Silva was. But he's ready. He seems absolutely locked in. Both these guys are very confident coming into this fight, and I'm so excited. I don't have too much time, so we're going to move up the card. I'm going to pick Gene Silva by second round KO. I think he sleeps Bryce Mitchell. I'm going to say by check hook. Moving up the card. Moving up the card. Yair and Patricio Pitbull. Okay. This is a great fight. I'm very interested. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to get right into it. Yair Rodriguez is going to win this fight by decision. Patricio Pitbull's very good. Good power. I could see him hurting Yair. Yair on the embedded series does seem very, very... I don't like to use this too much in predictions, but he does seem very, very mentally at peace. And I feel like that's a big thing for him. Because I feel like Yair gets in his head a lot. He gets in his own head. And I feel like his will breaks easily. Occasionally. And I feel like when he's not in a good mental state, I feel like coming off of that Volk fight, going into a rematch with Ortega, I don't think it felt right for him. And the way he lost that Volk fight, it was kind of demoralizing. Because he did everything he was going to do on the feet, but Volk just did what he did better. Then Yair goes into the Ortega fight and breaks in the second round. Because he has no idea how to defend a takedown. Now, Pitbull, he does have good, solid wrestling, and he has solid jiu-jitsu. Do I think it's good enough to completely neutralize Yair Rodriguez like a Brian Ortega? No. He's nowhere near as good as Brian Ortega on the ground. I think Yair will win this fight. I can see Pitbull. Pitbull could get an early finish. Yair is a little, skinny body, and I feel like he could get chinned by a shorter guy like Pitbull. Pitbull is going to get in the boxing range. He's going to try and mix it up, and maybe he rocks Yair at one point. But I think going into this fight, I like Yair's confidence. And I just see it now. I just see a 29-28 decision for Yair Rodriguez. Very, very close. It'll be a UD. He might get dropped in round 1. He loses round 1. Then he edges out rounds 2 and 3 and gets the win. And, round 1's close, so they can't rule it a 10-8, That's what I see. And I guarantee you that the UFC will give him a title shot if he beats Pitbull. Now, obviously, he doesn't deserve it compared to an Evloev or... that's really it in the featherweight division because there's a lot of shit going on right now in that division. But if you really think about it, the division's kind of wide open. And the fact that the UFC had the balls to matchmake Evloev and Pico, obviously that fight's not happening anymore, but that clearly shows that they're willing to not give Evloev the title shot. UFC's going to Guadalajara in September, and that's why I think Yair's going to get the title shot. We'll get to the main event in a few. But I think Yair will get this decision win. I bet they give him a fucking title shot to fight for the title in Mexico versus someone else for the featherweight championship. Especially after what happened at the press conference today, guys. I think you know where I'm going with this. But yeah, I can totally see it now. Yair gets the title shot just because he's Mexican, because of the rivalry. And I think it'll sell. And I love it. So, you know what? He doesn't deserve it, but I think Yair gets a close decision win. And Pitbull, we'll see who he goes after next. But, this is a very interesting, intriguing fight. And I think if Pitbull wins, I think they give him a title shot, especially if Volk wins. Volk versus Pitbull? Oh, yeah. So, we'll see what happens. But I'm going to pick Yair Rodriguez, 29-28 decision. Kicking him on the outside. Might catch Pitbull with kicks up the middle to the body. And I don't think Pitbull's been kicked like that before. So, we'll see what happens. But, yeah. Moving up the card, Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett. Another very intriguing fight. Pimblett, 6-0 in the UFC. Has a lot of ability. His opponents that he's beat are nowhere near the opponents, and the opponents that he's faced are nowhere near the level of opponents that Michael Chandler has faced or beat. But who has Michael Chandler beat? Tony Ferguson and Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker, I believe that was after he was coming up from featherweight. I don't think he was super ready for that fight either. He looked timid in that fight. He was just backing up, and then Chandler caught him with a really, really good overhand where he was stepping on the foot of Dan Hooker, and he kind of set it up. And then he knocked out Tony Ferguson, which Tony was on a losing streak at that point, and he got dropped by Tony Ferguson in the first round. Since then, he lost. He got submitted by Poirier, lost to Gaethje by decision, lost to Oliveira by decision, and then lost to Oliveira by KO. And obviously, not in that order, but I just feel that Michael Chandler is done. I really do. I feel like he's done. He's keeping in shape. He's entertaining. And maybe he gets a win and revives his career. But I feel like at the age that he's at, people forget, man. This guy's 38. All right? He's getting up there in age. He doesn't have the momentum on his side. He knows his back is against the wall. And so maybe he's got that extra level of confidence going into this weekend. And if you're looking at the matchup just from a stand view, if you're a TikTok fan especially, you're going to be like, well, Michael Chandler's going to dominate Pimblett. Pimblett's terrible. Pimblett's not great, but his submission ability is absolutely high level. And Pimblett's not a terrible striker. I mean, he's not a great striker, but they both bring it. And I feel like Chandler almost does better at range. Like, he's not like a get in the clinch and uppercut kind of guy. He's more of a stick you with a 1-2 while he's playing his game. Even though he's the shorter opponent generally at lightweight. And I feel like Pimblett is going to go into this fight much more confident than Michael Chandler. I think he's motivated. I like the fact that ever since he's had children, he came back to fight Bobby Green. Took a little, he took until July. Now he's taken off until April. I mean, he's not fighting active enough, but I get the time off. And he did look really good in that Bobby Green fight. I mean, on the feet, he didn't look nervous on the feet. He looked confident in himself. He looks like he trusts himself now. And I feel like he's fighting for something. He's got his twins, and I don't know. I just feel confident in Paddy Pimblett getting the win this weekend. Now, of course, Michael Chandler might catch him. But this is a very intriguing matchup, and I feel like Chandler's done. I really do. And I think Paddy Pimblett is going to be really ready for this fight. And I think if you get into the blitzing boxing exchanges, I almost trust Pimblett more. I know it's a crazy thing to say, and maybe I'll look like a fucking idiot after this weekend. But Pimblett likes to, he likes to run forward and throw, man. And Chandler's not a pull-back counter kind of guy. Chandler's more of a walk you down and stick you from the outside and throw a big overhand or a big left hand or a big, straight right. Like, he's not really going to catch you with an uppercut up the middle. He likes it from range. Pimblett likes it closer. And I think Pimblett's going to bring it closer. And I think that these two both moving forward are going to keep it close. I think this is going to be a fantastic fight. Guaranteed fight of the night. The main event could be too. And Gene Silver, Bryce Mitchell. I mean, there's so many great fights on this card. I'm so excited. But I'm going to say Paddy Pimblett. And I don't mind a KO prediction. I've seen KO predictions and people are calling it crazy, but I don't hate it. I don't hate that prediction. Because I don't see Chandler getting submitted by Paddy. Couldn't get submitted by Oliveira. I don't think he's going to get submitted by Paddy. I do agree with that opinion. I think he only gets submitted by Paddy if Chandler puts himself in a submission position, which I don't think he's that stupid. Well, I'm talking about Michael Chandler here. What the fuck am I thinking? The man with the worst fight IQ in the history of the UFC. It's going to be a finish. Either way. I don't see this going 5 rounds. And let's be real, man. Chandler did not look good in his Oliveira fight. He looked timid in that first round. He was not super active. He didn't do anything really until the 5th round where he hurt Oliveira once, hit him with a bunch of illegal shots, and then, slammed him on his back twice. I mean, let's be real. That's pretty much all Chandler did in that fight. Otherwise, he got beat, man. He got beat good. And obviously, he's more comfortable in there. He's not going to have the time off. I trust Pimblett. Based on their recent performances, I'm picking Paddy Pimblett. And I'm going to say 3rd round submission, rear naked choke. Moving up the card. The main event, Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes. I got about 5 minutes to predict this fight, so let's do it. I'm scared, guys. I'm scared that we're going to see Alexander Volkanovski get slept again. We always hear it. Every single time one of these legends, they come back and fight, especially recently. This is the most motivated I've ever been. This is the biggest fight of my career. My back's against the wall. This is the best camp I've ever had. I felt really good this camp. Izzy said the same thing, man. He said the same thing to Dricus, and he said the same thing about Imavov. And the thing is, the Dricus fight, he looked alright. I don't think he looked as amazing as everyone was saying. I think he looked okay, but I thought Dricus won those rounds. I thought he looked better in the Imavov fight, to be honest. I thought he won the first round against Imavov. But I could tell that, man, his chin doesn't look right. And he gets hit by Imavov with a big right hand, and he goes out. I could see the same thing for Volk, man. Now, the Ilya fight, obviously that was coming after the KO from Islam. And Izzy didn't have as much chin damage as Volk does now. Now, this is the best shape Volk has ever been, and I agree. Volk looks in amazing shape this week. I mean, looking at what he's looked like in this week, he looks great. That's why I like to do these later in the week, because I like to see how they look throughout media week, how they talk, because I think that plays a factor into my predictions. I feel like Volkanovski will win the first. Maybe he gets caught once. I don't think he'll go down. And I don't think this fight ends in the first round. I think it gets to at least the second, possibly the third. Obviously, we know how this is going to go. If Volk wins, it's going to be by a late TKO or it'll be by a decision. I think he'd win by late TKO because I think Diego gets gassed. On the other end, Diego might sleep him in the first 2 rounds. Diego's got mean fucking boxing on the inside, dude. And he's not scared of Volkanovski. And I don't think Volkanovski has the power to get Diego in the first. And here's what I mean by that. Volkanovski's got hands, and he's got, he doesn't have that KO power. He doesn't have that KO power. He'll give you damage. That's what he did to Holloway. That's what he did to TKZ. It's what he did to Yair. That's what he did to Islam. And obviously he rocked Islam and, kind of dropped him. It was more off balance. But I really do feel like, unfortunately, I think that Diego's going to win this. And I think he's going to fight Yair Rodriguez in the Guadalajara Noche UFC card in September at UFC 320, main event. Mexico versus Mexico, Brazil versus Mexico. But, rivalry, they don't like each other. The UFC knows that sells. And I feel like this is Diego's time. He said it himself, and he believes himself that he's going to get this done by KO. He looks confident. He looks ready. This is the most time off he's had for a lot of his fights. He's usually extremely active, and he was last year and the year before. He fought 3 times in 2023 after the short notice fight, including the short notice fight, and then he fought 3 times last year. One of them was short notice, and then he stepped up into fighting the Sphere. Now he's had 7 months off going into this fight. I like the preparation for a guy like Volkanovski. Volkanovski was training for Ilya, had to switch it over to Diego at the very beginning of his camp. And I worry, man. I think Volk could win this. I do. I do think he could actually win this fight because Volk looks in amazing shape. I think he's going to win this in terms of outpointing Diego Lopes. I do think that Volk is going to avoid a lot of Diego's shots early. Diego might catch him at one point, but I don't think he's going to put Volk out with it. But what I worry about is Diego blitzing inside, getting Volk into a clinch. Volk's like, oh yeah, I'm comfortable in this position. I can't do a fucking Australian accent. Well, I'm comfortable in this position, and then crack, uppercut right up the middle, the same way he did to Sadiq Youssef, and Volk could go out. Volk could go down, a few shots on the ground. Diego's fucking nasty on his ground and pound. And I trust his finishing instincts more than Volk, man. I really do. The only reason he KO'd Yair is because Yair's fucking soy-ass chin. I'm going to say Diego Lopes wins this. I feel confident in Volk, and I'm cheering for Volk. I love both of these fighters, unfortunately, and one of them has to lose. I'm cheering for Volk, as pretty much everybody is this weekend. No offense to Diego. But I think Diego gets it done by second round KO. I think he starts his Volkanovski out cold, and I think Volkanovski retires. And if he does get KO'd, he should retire. Maybe not right on the mic, but I do think he should retire if he loses this fight, because this is the best Volk that has ever looked in terms of camp. And I just worry that all those legends say that, man. They all say that this is the best they've felt. This is the best camp they've had. And then they lose. And they look good. They look really, really good. And then they get caught. And that's what I feel like is going to happen here. So I'm going to pick Diego Lopes by second round KO, unfortunately. All right. That's it for me. I'm done. Hope you guys liked this. If you want me to if any of you comment and you want me to have the camera instead, let me know. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm cheering for Volk. Let's go Volk, but, we'll see what happens. All right. Thank you all for watching. Bye.